Five, four. Welcome back to Friends Are Weird, your place for weird news. Let me restart that. That's okay. I didn't do my vocal exercises. Ah. And five, four. Welcome back to Friends Are Weird, your place for weird news and even weirder friends. I'm Joey.
And I'm Stone.
This week, Stone, I got some great tales for you. I'm going to tell you the story of two men in New York who died a stinky death. I'll tell you about the Surgeon General's newest warning. And we're going to relive the infamous 10-cent beer night as it celebrates its 50th anniversary.
Hell yeah, sounds great. First up for me, I've got some cops in Vermont who pranked a bunch of high schoolers into thinking that they were all going to die in a mass shooting to teach them a lesson. After that, a prison in Brazil is replacing all of their guard dogs with geese. And lastly, but not leastly, a pro-Zionist law student is suffering from a very real disease because protesters on her campus. And she wants people to know how real it is and also to please stop making fun of her because it's super surreal. But before we get into today's episode, though, I've got a bit of an apology I want to make to you, Joey. I was a bit of a jerk on the last episode, and I got a little bit of fame before we recorded, and it is obviously from showing up on Tasha's podcast, and I might have let it go a little bit to my head. I not only quit this show, but also my real job, and I sold almost everything that I own. I put a down payment on a house in LA to go work for Daniel Tosh full time. And for some reason, he just hasn't returned any of my calls. I've been trying to leave him at least 350 voicemails every single day, telling him to get back to me. And I don't know if he just has his phone turned off or something, but at this point, I think it's safe to say that it's probably not going to happen to me. I want to thank you for letting me back on this show after some of the hurtful things that I might have said before. I'm still relentlessly calling Daniel Tosh every single day, trying to get a hold of him. And I would encourage our listeners to attempt this as well on my behalf. But for now, I'm totally fine being on this okay show. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, and I don't mind. Some would call it settling for what we've gotten here, but I just want you to know that I don't mind at all.
Well, I definitely appreciate the apology. In the sake of forgiveness, I'll ask all of our viewers if you all could do us a favor after you like and subscribe, put a comment down below, tag Daniel Tosh, and tell him to pick up the damn phone because Stone is hurting, and he deserves better.
And you know what? I might have made you hurt as well, but honestly, it really comes down to it's Daniel Tosh's fault. But I am sorry for my part in what I may have done to hurt you, Joey.
Well, all is forgiven. At the end of the day, we're both alive. Unlike these next two folks that I'm going to tell you about, who out of upstate New York, two farm workers in upstate New York, Kirkland, New York, which is about 50 miles east of Syracuse, have passed away after falling into a manure tanker. Apparently, one man dropped a piece of equipment into the tanker itself. As he was trying to retrieve the tanker, passed out. I don't know if you know this, but the gas and the methane that cow shit produces is strong enough to not only kill a person, but it'll incapacitate you before it kills you. And so the fumes knocked him out. He fell into the tanker. His buddy went in after him to try to retrieve him. Both were taken to the emergency room and both pronounced dead. Now, although that's a tragic tale, what I thought was hilarious and what makes this a weird news classic is the name of the victims, particularly one of them. So one victim, Tyler Memory, 29, whatever, normal name.
Okay.
The second victim, Nathan Duty, died of duty.
Honestly, I always thought that that's exactly how you were going to die eventually. Except it would be like a human septic tank pumper, and you would get knocked out with a bunch of human fecal
Mm.
gases and probably drowned to death in it. But wow, Nathan Duty.
Yeah,
That's
Nathan Dude, and this isn't the first
uh,
time something like this has happened either. Similar incidents took place. So in 2016, a farmer and 13 cows died in Wisconsin after they were overcome by methane or sulfur oxide, which both come from huge manure holding tanks. I would imagine that those holding tanks, actually, let me take that back. You said you thought I would die from
mm-hmm.
overexposure to methane. I thought you were going to die from overexposure to methane when you lived at that apartment where the dog that we tried to free just shit all over the place because that smelled pretty bad too.
That was really fucking awful. But at least there were like windows too, and I wasn't just like
Yeah,
gathering it all up and like just like huffing it.
that's
Um,
true.
but yeah, that was a very unsanitary and frankly dangerous place for me to be living. But I mean, I wasn't paying rent, so kind of get what you don't pay for. But yeah, that's an awful way to die. I can't believe you thought that this story was funny, Joey. That's pretty awful. I'm sure their families are all very upset with you.
Absolutely. I
Uh,
mean, rest in
Thanks
peace.
for keeping the wound open and fresh for them, and infected due to the massive amount of shit. But
Well, we'll dedicate this episode of Friends Are Weird in memory to Duty.
in memory to do, and see, I kind of wonder about that dude's last name. Like, surely incidents like that have happened in his family's history. Like, how do you just have the name Duty? Like, usually people's last names are like based on something, uh, like Stone is like a bastard name for people that lived by a mountain. Uh, Caliendo, your family name, you came from, I don't know, I guess fishermen who were fishing for caliendos or something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what your last name means, but to have the name Duty and to just keep it for generations, like there has to be a story similar to his somewhere down the line.
Well, find out next episode of Friends Are Weird as Joey and Stone investigate Duty.
Mm-hmm. Well, hell yeah, that's a really shitty way to die, but I'm glad it was just them. All right, so first up, my first story this week. Do you remember that bit from Arrested Development where the dad used to terrorize his kids with the guy he knows with one arm, and he would just have him like get his arm violently ripped off in front of his kids, and it was always to teach them a lesson, like, and that's why you always leave a note, or that's why you always like it was always stupid little lessons like that he was
Mm-hmm.
trying to impart on his kids. Basically, these Vermont cops just did the same thing for like a really just dumb lesson, but just completely scarred these kids for life. These kids were there was like 20 high schoolers on a field trip to some police station. They were like part of like a forensic class or something, and they were doing a field trip to the local police station when all of a sudden a gunman burst into the room that they were all in. Like they were in like kind of a classroom setting, like all sitting at desks and tables facing the front of the room. A gunman burst in and started firing at everyone, and like these kids are terrified, like they all dive under the desk and start texting their moms goodbye, and like this very traumatic thing. The gunman was firing blanks, and the police were trying to teach them a lesson about it wasn't about like shooter preparedness or something like that they could actually take back to school and learn from. It was about how unreliable witness statements could be because of flawed human memory and recollection. So these 20 high schoolers, like, just sitting in some boring classroom with like a detective at the front, like boring them to death with like a lecture. And all of a sudden, a masked man bursts into the room wielding a rifle, firing blanks all over the place and screaming, "You're all gonna fucking die!" Like, some of them got injured, like diving under the tables, and like some of them presumably probably broke their phones. And I guess like afterwards they were asked, "Okay, what color shirt did the gunman have?" Like, because it was all about like human memory and like how flawed we remember things. And they went through this whole fucking thing. Uh, the police department blames the school officials who set up this like field trip, because they said, "Hey, we totally told them that there was going to be uh, a live gunfire kind of thing. Like, it if anyone's going to be triggered by that, if any of your pussy ass students are going to be triggered by gunfire,"
Jesus.
And like the school officials assumed, like, okay, they're going to like maybe shoot one round or something, like at their indoor shooting range or something like that. Like they didn't expect some fucking psychopath to rush in a police station and just like start firing like that. But yeah,
That's
that's what happened. And frankly, I thought it was one of the most funny fucking things that I've ever heard. But
that's
it's like that stupid video, like where the people are like passing a basketball and you're
yeah.
supposed to
Just
like
use
count how
that.
many times the basketball, and then like you don't notice the moonwalking bear like in the background because you're counting it. Like, yeah, they could have just showed them an example of that. But instead they made all 20 of these high school students think that they're all gonna fucking die. And they were like literally texting their moms like, "Oh my god, I think one of my classmates is dead." Fucking
Jesus.
there's a lot of screaming and commotion and gunfire. And like afterwards, like the masked gunman, like I, I couldn't find a whole lot of information about what happened like directly after, but I imagine he ripped off the mask and was like, "Ha! Got you, stupid!" Like, it's one of the most insane things. Like, as if high schoolers in America like don't literally have to worry about that at every second of the day while
Yeah.
they're at school. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really cool thing that the police did.
Jesus. I mean, we've got a pretty warped sense of humor here at Weird Friends, but that is absolutely insane. As a parent, if I were a parent and I found out that that happened, I would be pissed. I would be suing the fucking pants out of the police station and that school.
One of the students was recorded saying, like, after the event, it was like, "Okay, I kind of suspected that, like, maybe this was a prank or something when none of the cops in the room were, like, reacting to it or doing anything. But, like, this kid is clearly, like, not heard of Uvalde and what
I,
those fucking cops did." Like,
I was literally
just
just going to say the same
absolutely
thing.
nothing to fucking, like, yeah. And, like, for them to go ahead and blame the school officials too, set this whole thing up,
Yeah.
like, whoa, well, we told them that there was going to be gunfire, and we told them to mentally prepare their kids for the surprise attack that we're going to do. That's going to scar them for life. Like,
That
I mean, it's so terrible, but goddamn, that's one of the funniest things that I've ever heard
that's that
of police doing in America.
that sounds like if our old friend Mac ended up somehow working his way up into a police force and became like a
Mm-hmm.
sergeant and was like, "You know what, boys? I've got a great idea." Like that is the
If he was
most
put in charge of anything at all in the police department, he would
yeah.
be in charge of the field trips, and he would fuck it up that badly.
Jesus Christ.
But it's cool. At least he's not a cop. He's only a fucking EMT ambulance guy. So
He's only a field
luckily
trip
he's not in
nanny.
charge of. Yeah, but like, how fucking insane is that? Like, and like I said, it wasn't even like the lesson they were trying to impart. What had nothing to do with the very real possibility of being gunned down in a school setting, as is like actually a thing that can
Happens,
and will
yeah.
happen to every kid in America going to school.
Jesus.
But
Well,
yeah, no, it was basically just the moonwalking bear video, but the extreme version of it.
yeah, that's definitely unacceptable. Like you said, teens already have it hard enough, and that actually leads me perfectly into my next story. U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy has actually put out the first of its kind public recommendation that social media should come with a warning label the same way that cigarettes and tobacco products do. Murthy noted that putting a warning label would not necessarily make social media safe for young people, but pointed out that studies, particularly with tobacco products, help to increase awareness and change behavior. Social media is just fucking bad for kids. Like if I think of the list of things that are harmful for teens and preteens, I think school shootings, fucking social media. Like it is insane what social media does to the self confidence, the warped perception of reality, all of these things. And the Surgeon General previously issued an advisory back in 2023 warning about the impacts of social media. The current body of evidence indicates that while social media may have benefits for some children and adolescents, there are ample indicators that social media can have profound risk of harm to mental well-being and the health of children. Could you imagine when we were in high school? Twitter was probably like the closest thing to like social media. Twitter and Facebook, like MySpace had kind of started fading away a little bit. Facebook was kind of starting to get popular a little bit. Twitter was coming up a little bit. I could not imagine being connected 24/7 to the people that I went to high school with and all the shit that they talked about everything, all the stupid things that they did. Not to mention, I was kind of an asshole in high school, and social media would have just gotten me in trouble. But I couldn't imagine being a kid today having to deal with that.
Oh yeah, and especially with all the stupid challenges and shit that,
Yeah,
like, okay, first off, I mean, social media is clearly terrible for adults too.
yeah,
I would like to see what kind of warning label they're actually going to have. Like, I don't even use social media anymore, as you very well know, because I could just tell that it was like fucking up my brain. But like, are they going to go with like the Australian model for like cigarette warnings, where it's like they have graphic pictures of like a cancerous heart and like lungs and shit, like in the login screen, or is it just going to be like a completely smooth, wrinkle free brain, or is it going to like uh, just have, I don't know, a boomer's comment left on, like, I don't know, a post about the Wiggles coming to Milwaukee, where he just uses the N word like 60 times, like in an angry comment. Like what kind of warnings could they possibly like put up that'll be any kind of effective at all?
yeah,
Like it
yeah. I don't know.
maybe just your parents' profiles and like their most ignorant comments that they've left on something, like fucking go outside, go touch grass, and instead of being like your lame old mom. like uh, honestly, I think it's for the better. Like, the less people using social media, the better.
Hmm.
um it's kind of just a terrible thing, and the algorithms are just so heinously god awful. Like, all they care
Oh
about
yeah.
is clicks
Hmm.
and engagement and whatnot. And Facebook especially, like when I left in 2021, like I had the social media disease that anytime someone would like post like just overtly racist Nazi shit, I felt like I had it was my job personally to be the hero and come in and save the day and call him an ignorant fucking Nazi bitch ass loser. And it wasn't good for me. It wasn't changing any of the minds of the Nazis, obviously. And like I realized this shit in hindsight, but Facebook was literally like, "Oh, you fucking hate Nazis? Well, here's all the Nazis in your feed. Fucking react, react, react. You need to. It's your job. You, James
Mm-hmm.
Stone, are goddamn saving the world by commenting on all this bullshit." And eventually, I just got tired of being kicked off for a month at a time for calling someone an ignorant fucking Nazi. And I'm like, but he's the one that was being a Nazi. What the fuck? And eventually, I just had to like step away. And honestly, my life is so much better for it. Like not having my phone dinging in my pocket every 5 seconds because it's like, hey, guess what? Guess what? Some ignorant fucking asshole just said. Guess what? Terrible people exist out there. I think it's a good thing. I don't know how effective it's gonna actually be, and I can see it backfiring too. Like the Surgeon General posting a report about like how gas stoves obviously aren't healthy to have in your house, and like right wingers being like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm just gonna leave the gas on in my house all day. So suck it, liberals. I'm gonna put my 5-year-old on Facebook."
Yeah, I don't know.
But
It'll be interesting for sure. I don't think the warning itself will do much. However, I mean, if you look at the trend with tobacco products, like most people no longer smoke, and part of it was because of like the education efforts and the awareness efforts. Like the smoking population is like 1% of the population nowadays.
well, I think that that's more because vapes came along, and especially Juul with like
Sure.
their cotton candy sherbet flavored fucking cool electronic device. I think it's just a lot less visible because you don't see a lot of people smoking actual cigarettes anymore.
I
But
think when
I mean,
you
everybody vapes. Like
I don't know about
fucking
that.
everyone
I
does.
think when you look at the
You're
statistics,
like the only
even
person that doesn't.
no, I think when you look at the statistics of like even vape products that are purchased, it's still a vast minority compared to how smoking products in general used to be.
Maybe, maybe I'd have to actually see any hard data for it, but I don't know. Just from my experience and the cool people I hang out with, I feel like it hasn't really gone away. It's just people are a lot less stinky about it, you know.
That's for
But like
sure. They
that's
are.
just what I see in my own personal experience.
They are a
Um,
lot less stinky, but remember, Stone, anecdotal evidence is not evidence. And we at Weird Friends, we are better than that. Anyway, tell me your next story.
all right, so prison in Brazil just replaced all of its guard dogs with a flock of geese. And the stated reason is because geese are naturally aggressive. They're easier and cheaper to maintain and train as guard animals, and they can't be bribed with food like a dog can. Uh, so this
Interesting.
prison has like a it has like an area between like the fence that the prisoners are kept in and like the outer walls has like kind of a open area between like all the razor wire and fencing and shit that they have, and they have this flock of geese that apparently they're super easy to train. Like they all like one guy, the guy that trained them, and hate everything and everyone else besides that one person that trained them. And the geese live peaceful lives until they catch you in their space, and they're all trained to start honking and going wild and biting people trying to escape. And I've experienced firsthand the aggressiveness of geese, and honestly, it's kind of like that thing how like women were just surveyed if they would rather meet a man out in the woods or a grizzly bear,
Mm-hmm.
and like overwhelmingly they're like, well, obviously the grizzly bear. Like I kind of feel the same way towards like a vicious Rottweiler than towards like a flock of geese.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen those fuckers. They are mean.
Mm-hmm.
They're ornery.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I saw one. I think I was like 15 years old. I was at Haynes Park, and there was a flock of geese just wandering around the park, like doing their goose thing. There's this big family. They were all like having a picnic or barbecue or something, and I saw a goose walk right up to like a 4-year old and bite him right on the face and just would not let go. And this kid is screaming. I don't know if you've seen like geese teeth, but they have like sharp, razor sharp fucking rows of teeth. And it just like latched onto this kid's face, and the kid's screaming, and the goose is just until some dude in combat boots came up and punted this fucker across the park. Like, sent this goose like 50 feet away. And instead of learning his lesson to stop fucking with the humans, he went and started like fucking with someone else. So, I mean, a whole pack of geese. I Yeah, I definitely am glad that I'm not wanted in any Brazilian jurisdiction,
Well,
and I can't be extradited there. And it's probably against Fourth Amendment rights to be or whatever amendment it is about cruel and unusual punishment. It's probably against that amendment to be guarded by geese for now. I mean, who knows with this current Supreme Court? But I'm just grateful to not be on the wrong side of any system of government that would lock you up in such a way.
oh yeah. What wasn't there like an episode? I'm like having weird flashbacks of like those weird like memory moments you get where you're like you're still kind of a baby, maybe you're like toddler esque, going toddler into kid or whatever, and you're like finally starting to have like memories of consciousness or whatever, but they're super vague and super blurry. I'm having this very vague, blurry memory of an episode of Rugrats where Tommy was chased around by a goose and his grandpa was playing like a horn or a trumpet or something. I'm gonna have to go back and look for that clip, but I've definitely seen firsthand as well how aggressive geese are, just on an episode of Rugrats.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like if it was real life Rugrats, like Tommy would have been torn to shreds by a fucking goose. And you know that I have an affinity for birds. Like I'm kind of their
Yeah, you're
masters.
the Birdman.
Uh, but with geese, man, there's they're godless killing monsters, and uh, I don't think that I could rein in a goose if I tried with all my might.
Now you
If I had the most righteous cause to go after a goose, I could not contain just the chaos that is geese.
Well, you might be able
So
to if you were drunk enough, because when you are drunk, as we're about to learn in our next story, you make weird choices and you exhibit superhuman strength. Stone, do you know the story of 10 Cent Beer Night?
I have heard of this story, but I'm really excited to talk about it. It's one of my favorite stories in all of sports history,
Same. This
and it's by far the one of the greatest things I've ever heard.
this story is right up there with the pitcher who famously dropped acid right before a game and thought he was throwing fireballs and threw like a perfect game or a no hitter or something like that. But anyway, let's go back into the Wayback Machine and let's travel to June 4th, 1974, which, believe it or not, is 50
Okay.
years ago at this point already. I still think 50 years ago was in the 1950s, But no, 1974, 50 years ago, the Cleveland Indians hosted a game against the Texas Rangers at Cleveland Stadium, and just a week prior, the Indians were in Texas playing the Rangers in what ended up being kind of a spicy game. The two teams ended up getting into a brawl, tensions were high, and for that week leading up to the game in Cleveland, sports personalities on the radio were kind of stoking the fire, talking a lot of shit, talking shit about Rangers fans, talking shit about Indians fans, so tensions were already kind of high. That's when Cleveland Indian promoters decided to say, you know what? Let's improve attendance and let's offer cups of beer at just the low, low cost of 10 cents per cup, which is roughly equivalent to 62 cents in 2023. Could you imagine getting anything for 62 cents, let alone a beer?
Uh, no,
No,
no, not anymore.
no,
Like literally nothing at all is worth 62 cents or can be obtained for that.
no.
Um,
So
but I
basically,
mean that's a hell of a deal. Like,
yeah. Oh
you
yeah,
know,
great
I'd be
great
one of the
discount.
rowdy ones.
Absolutely, because although there was a limit of 6 beers per purchase, there was no limit on the number of purchases that fans could make throughout the game. So obviously, fans got a little fucked up. Now, here's where things get better. Throughout the game, you start to see fans get drunker and drunker, as you would if you're getting 63-cent beers, and things started out pretty cheeky and fun. Players were interviewed years later and recalled, like, yeah, there was the occasional streaker. First there was one, then there was five, then there was 10. Whatever, streakers, no big deal. It wasn't until about the sixth inning when fans started to get unruly and agitated about the long lines that happened because of the beer promotions, when fans, who were mostly college students visiting for the summer, decided to overthrow staff vendors and took over the beer trucks that were parked outside of right field, and they made beer
Yeah.
free for the rest of the night. Beer completely free for the rest of the night. People are already fucked up. Tensions are already high. And then by the ninth inning, that's when chairs started getting thrown. Cleveland Indians players remember chairs coming from the stands. Then all of a sudden, one fan rushed the field in an attempt to make contact with a Texas Ranger. And that's when all hell broke loose. By the end of the game, fans were on the field fighting players. Players were trying to beat off the fans with baseball bats. Chairs were being thrown. Yeah, I said beat off. Chairs were being
You said
thrown.
beat off. They're beating off the.
A Texas Rangers player had to go and be hospitalized because of a cut on his head due to being hit with a chair. It ultimately ended up in the game being suspended and the game being forfeited, because how the hell are you going to continue a game when you literally have every one of the 23,000 fans who were in attendance that night losing their goddamn minds and trying to fight players?
Yeah, that's pretty disruptive for any sport you're trying to play, especially one that involves baseball bats, which is a commonly used weapon for home defense. Um, but yeah, wow, 50 years ago, huh? That's 50
Yep,
years ago this week.
yep,
God
50 years
damn,
ago.
that's such an incredible story, and god damn it, I love America. I love I love poorly planned, like in hindsight, obviously that was gonna happen. It's
Of
like the
course.
time I think it was like Chicago released 400 billion balloons all at once, and then like they all sank back down into the Great Lakes and choked a bunch of ducks, and it's like, yeah, obviously that was gonna happen. They're fucking rubber balloons. Like, what the fuck were you thinking? Um, yeah, yeah, to mostly college aged crowd
Mhm.
of American fucking alcoholics. Obviously, that wasn't going to end well. And now, like, there really hasn't been a whole lot of promotions like that since.
Oh, no.
It's mostly like dollar hot dogs or something, and
Yeah.
you know the most you're going to get is just fucking people getting hot dogs sick everywhere, which is pretty disruptive, but you're a lot less likely to eat 10 hot dogs because they were cheap and then try to fight the players.
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, if that were to ever happen again, even if it was across the country for a team that I don't care about it, I would definitely be getting a ticket to go to that night. Uh, Not just for the super cheap beers, but also to witness the shenanigans that ensue.
Oh, of course,
Uh,
yeah.
but of course, it's never going to happen again
No.
because, well, capitalism.
As they always do, Cleveland ruined it for the rest of America. Thanks a lot, Cleveland.
Thanks a lot, Cleveland. God damn. Well, so for my last story, a law student at New York University, she's recently undergone a major health crisis that should definitely be taken seriously and should under no circumstances at all be laughed at or made fun of. This girl, Adela Kojab, bravely took the first step of acknowledging that she had a problem, sought the help of a $6,000 per week facility in South Carolina after hitting an all-time low, eating entire blocks of cheese alone in the dark on the floor of her Manhattan apartment. Uh, she claims that her recent addiction to cheese came on after experiencing anti-Israel sentiment on her campus at NYU. She just loves child murder so much that finding out that other human beings are actually pretty disgusted by the act of murdering children it drove her to throwing whole blocks of cheddar and Gouda alone in the dark for some reason on the floor of her apartment. Uh, so she definitely shouldn't be laughed at, mocked or ridiculed. Just like anybody on that reality show, My Strange Addiction. Her experience is very real and valid. The only mental illness that she's suffering is the addiction, and not borderline narcissistic personality disorder,
Yeah,
as
not at all.
many people would probably suspect. And she's not the only pro-Zionist psychopath on campus either who's been dealing with discrimination these days either. Uh, there's also that student who just showed up to a protest wearing a shirt with like a large Star of David, holding a megaphone and yelling at people to come fight her because she's Jewish. And tragically, that girl was ignored by like literally every single person around her because she's just being really annoying and because like most of the protesters there were actually Jewish and they don't tend to fight people just for being Jewish like she
Yeah.
kind of expected. uh there's also that girl who got her eye stabbed with a Palestinian flag. Did you hear about that one?
Jesus, no.
uh it it was all over the news. It was on MSNBC, it was on CNN, and of course Fox News. Everyone was talking about the girl who's stabbed in the eye with the Palestinian flag. But like, if you watch the video, she's like in this crowded hallway with a bunch of protesters, and one of them is just kind of like walking through the hallway, waving a small Palestinian flag, and it just kind of like barely brushes against her phone, and she starts screaming, "Oh my god, my eye!" Which she would have had to have been like filming this protest like this for there to be any way that she was actually even touched in the face with the flag. But she's just kind of joined the long list of psychotic Zionists, and I thought it was pretty funny. Uh, so she went to this like expensive resort, like rehabilitation facility for her cheese addiction. That for some reason like is entirely like the fault of all the anti-Zionist protests. Uh, and I'm sure somebody this on other podcasts that have covered this. Uh, on other forms of media where people have been covering this story. Like, I'm sure every single person has already made the joke that was on the movie Half Baked with Dave Chappelle, where the guy's like, "You ever suck a dick for marijuana?" But like about cheese. But like, there's no way that like everyone there at this rehab facility who's actually there for like drug addictions was just like cool with this cheese addict, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll buy like a gallon of blue cheese and drink that because it brings me comfort." Uh, I
Jesus.
don't know. It's just really fucking silly. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So that's what's going on in the world.
Well, well,
There's
goddamn. I
cheese addicted lunatics, but at least she's getting help for it. You know, she recognizes that it's a problem in her life, and it's considered extremely antisocial to just eat cheese by yourself alone in your apartment in the dark for some reason.
I wish
But
my
it's because
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just gonna say I wish my rich parents would send me off to a rehab resort because I eat a lot of cheese too.
yeah, I mean, I eat a fuck ton of cheese too, but I mean, I don't blame the fact that people think BB Netanyahu is a distasteful fucking asshole. I do it just because
Cheese
cheese
is
is
good.
fucking good,
Yeah, cheese is good.
and white boy that I am, like I have the stomach for it. Like I'm not lactose intolerant. I can handle some cheese, so I put it down.
Yeah, as you deserve. Well, you heard it here first, folks. James Stone, lover of cheese and not lactose intolerant. He also still drinks milk, even though he's a grown man, and it's really weird. But we love him anyway.
You're, dude. I think it's weird that you think that drinking milk is weird.
Hey, we have the empirical data. When we asked the fans, they all agreed it was weird, but we still love
I
you. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you're right. I feel like we ran that poll a long ass time ago, back before this this channel got any likes
Mm-hmm.
or subscriptions. Which, by the way, you all should take the time to like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
But this was before any of you people that actually like our show came around and discovered us. I feel like we might need to run that poll again. Maybe not this week, but like sometime in the near future, because I think that the data skews a, a little bit inaccurately. I could be wrong. And
I am
I'll
down. I
drop
am
it.
down to rerun that poll. In the meantime, you all can comment in the comment section if you think milk drinking as a 33-year-old grown man is weird. But between now and then, we will think of this poll, and the loser has to get chased by a wild goose.
Fair, fair.
All right,
I,
sir. You have
I feel
yourself a
like that's
deal.
only fair. So, yeah, if people legit do, if more people legit do think that it's weird to drink milk, I mean, it's just fucking milk, Joey. It's a common thing to drink. Um, yeah, I will gladly be chased by a goose.
All right,
I
folks.
probably won't survive the encounter, and you're gonna have to find another co-host. But I feel like you were already kind of in the market anyways after
Mm-hmm.
what I
Yep.
what we went through last week.
I'd already been hosting interviews for our next host, but you know what? Until then, Stone, just know I love you. I love you, our
Love you
precious
too,
fans
bud.
and our subscribers. This has been Friends Are Weird. Please like, subscribe, and share, and you all have a wonderful day. We love you.
Love you guys. Get home safe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.